Henry, you're literally in Russia. Is there any sort of clarity on what Russia is actually doing in Syria?
Yes, as you mentioned, the Russians claim that they struck Islamic State targets yesterday in Syria, and the US says that the areas which were hit are not areas in which Islamic State has a presence. This morning, the spokesman for President Putin seemed to confirm those concerns by the US when he said that Russia's goal is to support the advancing forces of President Assad, and the Russian campaign is aimed at countering, as he expressed it, extremist groups, including Islamic State. So that would very much seem to feed into those suspicions that Russia has a broader goal of fighting all the opponents.
Yeah, this is going to be a problem, isn't it, Henry? This is going to be a problem, knowing what Russia is actually doing. Gideon Ruckman in the Financial Times today writing that Russia's military moves means that current journalistic fashion is to laud Mr. Putin for his mastery of international strategy. But if and when Russian military personnel start dying in Syria, the applause might fade. For this good reason why the Americans have been reluctant to put boots on the ground in Syria. Is there any good outcome here? Even if President Assad is supported by Russia, the US is working in the opposite direction, so we're going to have all-out chaos, are we not?
The risk is certainly that you could get a worse conflict. The Saudi foreign minister 2 days ago said that if Russia continues to support Assad, that eventually Saudi Arabia may have to increase support for the rebels. At the moment, there are some lines of communication between the militaries of the US and Russia, so the Russian hope is that actually they will construct some kind of informal coalition on the ground. We'll see whether that actually happens.
Henry, there is a stereotype in the United States of a Russian military effort that's clumsy, rusted, and just really not all that good. What is the quality of the military and aircraft that Russia has in Syria? Are these crack forces?
The pilots certainly are very good. The planes they have deployed are a mixture. Some of them are advanced fighter aircraft, some of them are older models, and that will impact on the efficiency of the operation. It means that Russia will have to deploy some of these aircraft at relatively low altitudes, which could mean the risk of being shot down and pilots being captured, and this of course could have an adverse effect on Russian public opinion. But in general, these are crack forces that Russia is deploying.
Henry, we spoke to the Latvian foreign minister yesterday on Bloomberg Surveillance. Does this take the focus off of the Ukraine?
That is very much the Russian goal. Tomorrow in Paris, President Putin will meet with his counterparts from Germany and France and Ukraine. And one of the main Russian objectives in Syria is to get out of the isolation that it's been under since it annexed Ukraine's Crimea Peninsula and got involved in the Ukrainian conflict. And it is hoping that it could lead eventually to an easing of sanctions against Russia.
Henry, if we start to see civilian casualties, which some reports say we're already seeing at the hands of Russia, what is the international and particularly the US response?
Well, there have been civilian casualties already in Syria. The concern is that the Russian operation may not be as careful and that you will see more so-called collateral damage than has been the case so far. You know, that could have two impacts. It could also increase the insurgency against President Bashar al-Assad, and also you could end up with retaliation against Russia. There is a risk of jihadist attacks in Russia.
Henry Meyer, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it in Moscow.